Hello, my name's LaDonna Moore. This is a presentation for Money, Finance, and Crisis. And the presentation will be on two countries, Portugal and South Africa. Portugal, officially known as the Portuguese Republic, is in the westernmost country of Europe, and it's located in the Iberian Peninsula. As you can see here, it's surrounded by Spain to the north and east, and the Atlantic Ocean to the south and the west. Portugal was a part of the Roman Empire from 45 BC to 290 AD. This effort took hundreds of years, and it was in 1139 that the Kingdom of Portugal was formed. Alfonso Henriques was the first king of Portugal. Starting in the 14th century, it became a major power in the age of exploration. Portugal established colonies in South America, Africa, and the Far East. In 1932, Dr. Antonio Salazar took power as prime minister, but ruled more as a dictator for 42 years. First Salazar, then Marcelo Cantonio would rule Portugal. In 1974, a left-wing military coup took over the country and made drastic democratic reforms, including granting independence to all of Portugal's African colonies. Portugal was a founding member of NATO and is also a member of the European Union. So the 20th century will go 1908, the king and queen were assassinated. 1910, Portugal became a republic. World War II, Portugal was with the Allies. From 1910 to 45, there were 45 changes in government. 1932, the new prime minister was Antonio Salazar, as we mentioned, and he ruled for 36 years. In 1975, Portugal finally had a strong and stable government, which they still do have today. And as I mentioned previously, in 1986, they joined the European Economic Community, which is the European Union, and became the fastest growing country in the European Union. Here we've got a population, a few little statistics about Portugal. Population of a little over 10 million. Religion is primarily Roman Catholic. Other Christians and Muslims as well do make up small percentages, as we can see. The prime minister is the head of government, and it has a multi-party system. The president is executive head of state. Current president is Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. Prime Minister Antonio Costa. And the currency in Portugal is the euro. That's the Portuguese flag. Now here we've got a look at the Portugal GDP growth rate from 2006 to 2016. As you can see, it dipped down a little in between 2008 and 10, but it's about where it started at from 2006. The economy advanced 0.2% on quarter in the 3 months to December of 2015, following an upward revised 0.1% growth in the previous period and matching preliminary estimates. While net external demand expanded, domestic demand contracted mainly due to reduction of investment. That's what the final figures have showed anyway. After 3 years of the economic and financial assistance programs, the Portuguese economy was able to correct a number of macroeconomic imbalances, such as net financing capacity in relation to the exterior, ongoing budget consolidation, transfer of resources from the non-tradable sector to the tradable one. Nonetheless, the severe austerity measures originated high job reduction rates, record high unemployment rates, massive long-term unemployment, along with worsening social conditions and increasing government debt. Next, the GDP. This shows the Portugal GDP per capita, and you could see the difference from 2006 to 2014. However, if you look at 2013, there's a big drastic change between those 2 years. This is the Portugal gross national product, and this goes from 2013 to 2016. You could see the increase now for the 3-year period, looking at January from 2013 compared to now. Tremendous difference. Home ownership rates in Portugal has increased to 74.90% in 2004. And that just goes up a little from 2013 when it was 74.20%. Not very much difference there. The home ownership rate averaged 74% 2004 until 14. So those home ownership rates kind of are steady. Here is what I was mentioning in terms of the unemployment um, rate and the monthly wage rate, which I think the monthly wage is really important. The unemployment rate increased 12.2% in the last quarter of 2015. That's compared to 11.9% in the previous two periods, as the number of unemployed went up 2.4% while employment dropped down. A year ago, the unemployment rate was recorded at 13.5%. Unemployment rate in Portugal averaged 7.71% from 83 until 2015. So it's drastically changed. And also, I did show the gross national product, and just to mention that it did decrease in the fourth quarter of 2015. We did just see that, but I did just want to mention that. The wages in Portugal increased. Not very much, but it was a slight increase within the past 2 years. Okay, we're going to get into South Africa now. South Africa is located at the southern tip of Africa. It's 2,798 kilometers of coastline on the Atlantic and Indiana Oceans. It's divided into 9 provinces. South Africa is a multi-ethnic and diversely cultural location. It is 24th in population and the 25th largest country by area. The currency for South Africa is the rand, and the people are referred to as South Africans. A little bit of quick history from South Africa. 1400s, the Zulu and the Zos tribes established large kingdoms there. 1652, the Dutch established the port of Cape Town. They're the first Europeans to settle in South Africa. In 1852, the British take control of Cape Town. In 1886, gold is discovered in Johannesburg, making the city rich. 1899 and 1902, the Dutch settlers fight the British in the war. Britain eventually gained control of South Africa. In 1910, South Africa becomes an independent nation. 1918 is when Nelson Mandela was born on July 18th. 1948, apartheid is introduced. Laws legally and physically separated different racial groups. 1952, the African National Congress, which is a black civil rights group, began a campaign for defiance of unjust laws. That is their protests to begin against apartheid. And Nelson Mandela was one of their leaders. In 1960, in the town of Sharpeville, 67 Africans were killed while they were protesting apartheid. In 1962, Mandela was arrested. The charge was plotting against the government. Though he did stay active politically, he did spend 27 years in jail. 76 hundreds of black protesters were killed in an uprising in Soweto. In 1990, President F.W. de Klerk announced the end of apartheid. Mandela was freed in 1990 after serving 27 years in prison. And in 1993, de Klerk and Mandela were both jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 1994, South Africa held its first election in which all of the races can vote. That is extremely significant. And Nelson Mandela was elected president. Now we'll take a look at, with all of those changes going on, how did it actually affect the economy of South Africa? And if you take a look here, you can see the South Africa GDP, and this is from 2006 to 2014. You could see even from, looks like from 2011 to 2014, we're going on a little bit of a decline there. The GDP in South Africa was worth 350, a little roughly 350 billion. This is in US dollars. That was in 2014. And the GDP value of South Africa represents 0.56% of the world economy. GDP in South Africa averaged 123.92 US billion, and that was from 1960 to 2014, and it reached an all-time high, as we can see, in 2011, and the all-time record low, which is not shown on my chart here, though, was in 1960, and that was 7 billion, roughly a little bit more than 7 billion. The gross national product decreased in the fourth quarter from 2015. We could see there. And it averaged about 15. It averaged here. We can take a look from 14. There was a drop in 14. We could see that the largest is here in July. And the record low again was 1960. We could see the record high here on the chart. It was recently. Housing index in South Africa has increased to 503 index points in February. It's gone up. The housing index normally averages 121 index points, and that's from 1966 until now. 66 is the year I was born, so that's 50 years. Reached an all-time high in February of 2016. The record low was in January of 1966. Can't mention South Africa without mentioning Nelson Mandela. I told you about when he was born. He was a political activist. He did spend 27 years fighting for against the government apartheid regime. He was born in South Africa in 1918. He was the son of a local tribal leader. And during his time in South Africa, he did attend university, so he was educated. Again, he did become president of South Africa, and he was a positive figure in ending apartheid. Once he did become president, the country undoubtedly flourished. People were able to vote when they weren't able to vote. Separatism was over with. And as president, he wanted to heal the country of the past. Despite him being mistreated and fighting his oppressors, he wanted to heal the country of the past. He wanted the country to be prosperous. 1995, the Rugby World Cup was held in South Africa, and he was instrumental in encouraging Black South Africans to support it. They previously were against it because that is a symbol of white supremacy. But Mandela met with the Springbok captain, which was the head of the Rugby World Cup. It was just those types of things that had gone on in the country to kind of help it prosper. Unemployment rates are what we're going to look at next. The job rate in South Africa has decreased to 24.5% in the fourth quarter. That's from 2015. And it's just decreased a little. It was just up a point in the previous period, and it's still below, market expectations. It was the lowest reading since the last quarter of 2014. A number of unemployed went down 4.2% to 5.2 million, 4.2% to 5.2 million, while employment went up at a slower 1.2% to 16 million. Unemployment rate in South Africa averaged 25.27%, and that's from 2000 until 2015, reaching an all-time high, which was 31%. That was the first quarter of 2013, of 2003. The record low was the fourth quarter of 2008. So it's still not where it was, but it has definitely improved slightly. Here, we're going to compare the GDP This is a comparison to Portugal and South Africa. South Africa is in the red. Interestingly enough, you could see in 2000 they started a bit equal. You could see Portugal dropped as well as South Africa. However, Portugal remained a deep drop. Right around 2008, the GDP for both countries seemed to have dropped. They did peak back up a bit. South Africa peaked up and kind of remained steady, whereas Portugal dropped and is back up on the rise again. Here's the GDP per capita and inflation for both countries. Portugal is in the blue, South Africa is in the red. We look at the GDP per capita, a much different story. South Africa kind of remains steady, has gone up since 2000. And to the contrary, though, Portugal is jumped significantly. If we look at the inflation rate, between the two. South Africa kind of bounces around here, and Portugal kind of remains a little steady. It does go down. Interestingly enough, at the same time the inflation rate goes down for Portugal, it seems to have increased significantly for South Africa, and that looks like it's between 2009 and 2010. These are the references. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. It was definitely interesting getting to know other countries and other cultures.